Good morning, freshmen. So we are back out here for a new day on my porch, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about the Enchantress Circe. So that was what you were assigned to read first from the selection of the Odyssey that we have. Um, so one of the things that is gone over very, very quickly in this version in the italicized text is the Wind King Aeolus and the island of the Lost Dragonians. Whereas in our graphic novel, we saw that in a longer, more drawn out version. Um, so one of the things that I want to point out here is that Circe is very different from Calypso. She's one of two women to hold Odysseus captive, but she is not Calypso. And Calypso holds Odysseus for 7 years. So Calypso, but now Calypso only holds Odysseus. And I think that is definitely worth mentioning. By the time Odysseus is with Calypso, he's on his own. All of his men are gone for one reason or another. Now, Circe holds Odysseus for what is often described in many of the books as seasons or seasons and seasons. And I think that is an important distinction to make because these two women are often the most mixed up in the Odyssey. Both women hold him captive. Both of them have names that start with C. So sometimes students have a tendency to mix these up. That's fine. So the reason I wrote these out here on the board is because I wanted to give you kind of a little quick way to remember this. And I think I went over this briefly in class one day, but just in case I didn't. Calypso has more letters in it than Circe does. Calypso held Odysseus for 7 years. Years are longer than seasons. Calypso is longer than Circe. So if you're ever trying to remember who held who for longer, Calypso held Odysseus longer. And remember that Circe is also the one that turned Odysseus' men into pigs. So he actually ends up visiting Circe twice. And another way you can remember that is Circe kind of starts like circle. And Odysseus basically goes in a circle. He will actually see her free his men, go to the land of the dead, and then go back to Circe. So he does kind of make a little loop. So that's the easiest way to remember that he sees her twice. Circe, circle, they are similar. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is the reading focus to start with, just that way we can at least have gone over one or two of these questions together as you get further into the reading. So it's asking you to summarize, right? And what I think is important to note is that the A is, in the actual text, is at the bottom of the page, and then below it, it actually has the question: what has happened so far in this episode? So remember, the key words here are this and episode. You do not want to have a summary of the whole Odyssey. We don't need it. You're not being asked for that. You're basically just being asked, what's happened so far? Basically in the past 3-4 paragraphs. So don't write more than you have to. This is one of those moments where, people sometimes see don't see this episode and they just kind of keep going and they write a lot about basically the whole book or things that have happened recently. You don't need to do that at all. You just need to basically summarize what's happened on this page, just this page, from that bar where it says the Enchantress Circe on to the end. So once you hit that little circle with the A in it, after they heard the goddess Circe, stop, summarize. This is something I would recommend doing as you are reading. Partly because, technically speaking, if you are being asked to stop and summarize what has happened so far, you don't want to summarize anything from page 1060, for example, because that is, well, technically it is a summary of the episode. It is not of the episode up until that point, which would make it technically incorrect. For the literary focus, which is on 1060 at the bottom, it says, in what ways does Eurolocus contrast with Odysseus? Does Eurolocus act as a hero would? Explain. So we've talked about Odysseus being a hero all throughout basically the entire time we've been reading the Odyssey. We referred to Odysseus as a hero, as an epic hero. He is the one on the hero's journey. So think about what Eurolocus does. Is it very heroic? One of the things I would tell you is that to answer a question like this, I would look at the word contrast. Remember, contrast means differ. So if you see that, without even reading this page, without even reading that section where that little B is, you can sit there and say, well, I know Eurolocus is not a very heroic person. How do we know that? Odysseus is a hero. So now you have to then address some of these changes and the differences and explain them. And that's the tricky part. And the easiest place to look for that is right where that B is. That paragraph says 580. That's where the line is. You'll want to look there and address that. And that would be a good place to look for evidence. So I hope that helps give you a decent idea of kind of what these questions are asking. Because we want to make sure that we're understanding the questions so we can answer them most effectively. Now, also know that there are two A's. When you get to page 1061, you'll see another A. That is for a literary perspectives question. And that is a letter A for the land of the dead. If you are putting them on a separate sheet, which I think most of you will be, A, B, A is fine. If you want to put a heading and say that, you had that, put Circe and land of the dead, so put Circe and then A and B, and then land of the dead, A, and B, and so on, then that's fine too. But if you just go A, B, I'll know. I'm going to address the Land of the Dead literary perspectives question real quick, and then we'll wrap today's video up, and we'll create another one going over some of the stuff for tomorrow. So the question is, sacrificial offerings to the gods have been mentioned several times. Why might such a ritual have been important to the ancient Greeks? Think about how sacrifices in ancient times were conducted, what their purpose was. I'm not expecting you to have like this perfect textbook answer, but give your best guess based on what we've read so far and based on what you've learned from other sources, and that'll give you a pretty good answer to that question. Now remember, I have this kind of split up, so if you wanted to kind of pace yourself, do the Enchantress, Circe, and the Land of the Dead one day, and then do the rest of it the next day. That is perfectly fine. So that's all we have for today. And if you have any questions, need any of the words or any of the other questions clarified, please feel free to reach out to me, either through Google Voice or email or text, whichever option works best for you. Remember, my office hours are Monday through Friday from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and I am always available during that time to answer any questions that you may have. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.